All right, sorry it's so short, but at least we got a little bit of jams in today. Well, welcome to our session and webinar, the Entrepreneurship Education in the New Era. We are so excited to have you here today. Just a little bit of webinar etiquette for you all. If you would go ahead and mute your lines, we will greatly appreciate that. There will be time for Q&A at the end of presentations, as well as you can also put your questions inside of the chat. We will be monitoring that. So once again, welcome. I am Sonny Jordan, your host for today's Entrepreneurship and Education in the New Era. How exciting it is. Allow me to share a little bit about Western Governors University and why we are here today. Western Governors University is a nonprofit online competency-based university founded in 1997 by governors to bridge the gap between talent and opportunity. We currently have 4 programs: the College of IT, the College of Business, College of Education, and the College of Healthcare. Western Governors University, North Carolina was established in 2017 as a partnership between Western Governors University and the state of North Carolina, with a unique mission to help North Carolina residents obtain a quality education. The mission of WGU North Carolina is to expand access to affordable higher education for North Carolina residents through online competency-based programs that address key workforce needs. The university WGU North Carolina is led by our very own Katherine Truitt, the Chancellor of WGU North Carolina, which you will learn more about today in our session. But once again, welcome. We have guests who are here, who are students with WGU within the College of IT and Business, as well as members of the North Carolina Economic and Development Association, and also the Bryan Hamilton Foundation. I am Sonny Jordan, Strategic Partnership Manager within Western Governors North Carolina. Allow us to get started. Is everyone ready? Yeah. Awesome. Today's guest is Bryan Hamilton, who co-founded the SageWorks, the country's first fintech and largest provider of software to U.S. banks. He sold the company to a leading private equity firm in 2018. He also is the founder of Inmates to Entrepreneurs, a national program that helps people with criminal records start their own businesses, people with criminal records start their own business and small business. Inmates to Entrepreneurs is supported by the Bryan Hamilton Foundation, which provides access to entrepreneurship to people who wouldn't otherwise have it. Hamilton holds multiple patents for his work in automating financial analysis. He is a regular guest on CNBC and Fox and is regularly quoted and writes for all major national media publications. He's also a contributor to Inc. and Entrepreneur magazines. The first in his family to attend college, Bryan holds an undergraduate degree in Sacred Heart University, where he served on the board of trustees, and an MBA from Duke University's Graduate of Business. Welcome, Bryan.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Sonny. That's a great opening. You got to put that music back on, and that's you got to play some of that music. It looks like 1970s stuff. It's like Grand Funk. All right, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. We need some music these days. We need to dance, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll give a little intro about myself. I'll keep it short. I'd like to get questions from probably there's a lot of kids. I know there's adults and some kids who think they're adults, maybe, sort of, not yet, actually, they don't know it yet. But seriously, I'd like to get questions from, based on my background, Sonny, get questions from the participants. I think that's always a lot more interesting. But Charlie wanted me to make a couple of comments. So the first one is that, entrepreneurship was changed completely the trajectory of my whole life. When I was a kid, I'm going to keep it very short. You're just going to have to believe me on this one, but I don't want to get into my whole background of everything. But basically, we didn't have money when I was a kid. It's true. I did go to Duke, by the way. That's actually true. But I always got a kick out of when I went to Duke because everybody there, they all think they hit home runs, but the truth is most of them were born on third base and they got a base hit, you know. And that's really true. So these rags to riches stuff, everybody claims it, but in my case, it sounds bad to say, but it's actually true. My father didn't graduate from high school, and we got my sister Susan got sick. There's a lot of poverty around, and you know, real poverty like food stamps and everything that goes along with it in neighborhoods. Because as some of you know, poverty isn't. It's not one thing. It's not an economic thing. It's comes with a lot of crap, frankly. There's a lot of junk with it. So I lived that, but I met these people called entrepreneurs when I was very young. My father would go down to Southport, Connecticut, and we would work on these mansions like Pip from Great Expectations. Now that I think back, you know, like you go to these huge mansions, and I met these entrepreneurs, and I was like, wow, that's for me. They got nice houses and they have nice lives. You know, I was like, wow, it's unbelievable. And I wanted that. So I followed that my whole life. My bio is right, but really, if you look at me, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 9 and 10. I was always cutting lawns and you know, cleaning out gutters, the leaves, the gunk in that. What's that black stuff in the gutter, by the way? What is that? Anybody ever clean out gutters? What's the black stuff? It's like soot. But I did all that, and I did it real young. I learned to work. I learned how to make money. How do you turn money? So if you got kids out here, like learn to do that. We're doing this thing with Mark Cuban and Fox today, and trying to teach the kids about entrepreneurship. But really, the earlier you do it, the better, right? You learn to turn money. I paid my way through college. I didn't go to Duke undergrad. I went to Sacred Heart University. I paid my way through there, and I haven't paid my way through Duke by businesses that I ran. That's my background. So I'm going to mention some things for people, you know, and I think it's an important time to do it. And this sounds so Zen-like. It sounds like I'm trying to be like a fancy person, you know, but the older I get, the more experience I get. I want to reduce things down for people because we're living in a high stress time, and we always want to like over intellectualize things and overthink things. And just like speaking, you worry about where your head is, and see Katherine in there, you know, how you doing, Katherine? And you're always worried every word you say. I mean, you get stuck in the muck. You overthink things. We don't need to do that. We need to be smart and understand and contextualize things, but don't overthink things. So let me tell you a little bit about my view on what's going on right now. Number one, control what you can control and ignore what you can't. Now, I look back on my background and I think like, well, boy, I didn't start with as much capital and I didn't start in Silicon Valley. I didn't even know what that was, by the way. Do they make silicon and Silicon? I don't know what they make out there, but I didn't even know what that stuff was. I started a coin laundromat when I got out of Duke. My father thought I was crazy. I actually did. That's what I did. And then I sold that and I started Safeworks with the big score. But my point is this: when you run a business in life, just generally, because I know not everybody here is an entrepreneur, which is fine. We get bundled up in stress. Stress comes in packages. You got kids you're worried about, or you got some of you have parents. They're annoying, you know. I understand this. I was a kid and a parent. And you got the dog gets sick and you can't make your mortgage payment. You can't. So what I like to do in my life is I look at what I can control and what I can't. And whatever I can't control, I just don't think about. And I'm telling you, I've gotten good at that. So what can't we control? What can't you control? What you can't control? It's raining outside today. Is it raining in Charlotte? I don't know where you guys are, but it's raining. I can't control that one. Like I dream a genie. I can't blink my eyes. Remember that, Katherine? And then now it's not, now it's sunny. I can't control the economy. I can't control the president. I can't control the Congress. I can't control my neighbors. And so I don't think about that. I mean, I really don't think about that. Like, that's why I don't watch the news, by the way. I mean, just, you know, gosh, every time I watch the news, I want to take a nap. Everything's negative, you know. And I know they're not trying to do that. But geez, like it's so negative. So there's things you can't control. You just got to get those out of your head. But you can control your education. You can't control what you think about. You can't control customer service. There are things that you can control. In fact, most things that are really important, you can control. That's the truth, right? You can control it. Charlie, our new CEO, is sitting over here, Sonny, on to my right, but we did a nice webinar for the historically black colleges and universities. And the issue of racism came up. I'm not an expert in racism, and I don't claim to be. I can't control the color of my skin, and I can't even control how some people react to that. I mean, this is right. Does racism exist? I mean, come on, give me a break. Of course it does. So you got to get really good at controlling what you can control. And on that note, for I see Lawrence in there and Sonny, you got the great music and the great intro, by the way. And but let's go back to some basics. I'll tell you some books that changed my life. Think and Grow Rich changed my life. It was written 100 years ago by Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. How you think controls your outcome. You look at the history, political leaders and business leaders, and they're reading the same stuff. You know, they're not on the internet all day reading junk. Now, you know, I know that sounds old-fashioned and stuff, but I really got really good at controlling what I want to be around. Like my father never graduated from high school, but he didn't want me around people who were a bad influence. He was smart. He was wise. You can have the greatest education in the world. It doesn't make you wise. My father wasn't educated, but he was wise. So be around good people. Try to get around good thinking. There's good thinking out there. You just got to find it. Now, I was in the internet, technology, and I was one of the fancy people, right? And the internet's good. We can Google things and all that. But there's a lot of junk out there, right? So that's one. Another one, too, that changed me. Now, I don't know Katherine. I don't know Lawrence. I don't know Sonny. And I don't know somebody I can't read because I can't read anymore on the screen. I need my glasses. But I'm self-conscious about that, okay? But another great book that I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. How to Win Friends. Katherine's nodding her head. Every successful person I know read it. Last 100 years, Warren Buffett read it. You know, it doesn't matter your political leaning or whatever. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Try to get good thoughts around you. Now, we all are creatures of sin. We all have bad thoughts. I got bad thoughts right now. But you don't want those to be the dominant thought of your life. Okay? You don't want that to dominate what you think about. But we all have it. You're listening to me right now. Well, I believe him. I don't believe him. I like this. I use Irish Catholic. I don't like Irish people. We all have negative thoughts, but the more you can control what you think about, and frankly, at the universities, we need to do a better job with that. You know, we really do. It's true. I mean, I went to Duke for business school. They turn everything into a number. It's unbelievable. I mean, if they were like running a football team, they do it on a spreadsheet. All they do is math. It's unbelievable. The world, math is important. You got to be good at math, but math is not going to make you successful. It's your people, the way you deal with people, your view of history, how you think. So get around good thoughts. Entrepreneurship and education. I'm glad to be here. I'm gonna kind of end on that. In the United States, there's two ways up. There's only two ways. Two ways up. Where you are, there's two ways up. One is to get educated. We know that there's a very strong correlation between education and success. We know this. This is why our parents and the administrators and the principals are always nagging us to do well in school. It's annoying. I hated school, frankly. Don't tell anybody. This is not on the internet or anything, is it, Sonny?
I don't think it's going to be too.
It might be on the internet. It might be being recorded. But don't tell anybody. I hated school. I did. I was a football player. That's all I cared about when I was a kid. And we always mention Duke because it sounds like really great and everything, like I'm smart. But the truth is I went to Sacred Heart University undergrad. And I just didn't like school that much. But do well in school because your parents have wisdom. They know the better you do in school, the better your chances are. I mean, absolutely. But we also know that poor people, as a rule, don't get equal access to education. I don't want to turn this into politics. That's other people's business. We know statistically that's true. Like in my house, you know, I'll give you an example. And I always worry about this, Sonny, because I don't want to put my parents down. And it sounds like I might, but I'm really not. But in my house, we didn't have a lot of books. You know, we didn't have a book. We had like a biography of Marilyn Monroe. I remember that one. But there was like some magazines, but there wasn't a lot of reading because my parents weren't educated. So that's why I'm here to say the next thing. The way up in society is through being an entrepreneur. Now, if If you're smart, you'll be good in school and you'll be an entrepreneur. But the second way is through being an entrepreneur. And why? Because when you're an entrepreneur, you just don't make money, you get wealth and you accrue wealth in the value of your company. So that's why I'm such an advocate for being an entrepreneur. And the more you can learn about, the better. And I'm not going to talk about that too much. All right, so a couple of things I'm going to end on, then we get some questions, and then we can talk. If I were going to give anybody advice about being an entrepreneur, what would I say? This is it. This is it. 57 years to teach this in 60 to 120 seconds. Number one, you got to love your customer. If you're a self-centered person and you're only out to get money, you're never going to make it as an entrepreneur. That's why there's a lot of junk on the TV about, greedy business people. It's amazing. Everybody on TV who's a business person is greedy. I've never met one that's successful, but I guess they are on TV. If you're going to be successful in business, number one, you got to serve your customers. You have to be on service. And boy, that's an orientation of the heart. And that's true. I'm telling you, I've been around the block. I really have been. I know hundreds of millionaires, and now everybody's a billionaire all of a sudden, but I know those people too. I'm sure there's bad people in business, like ministers and the priests. And there's probably some good ones too, right? I'm telling you, if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you're going to be about creating value. Done. That's number one. You got to be great at customer service. You got to be good at giving. If you're a selfish person, go do something else. Because if you don't create a lot of value, you're not going to be able to be successful. That's number one. Number two, and this is it, you got to learn to listen. When I was some of these people's ages, I don't know. When I was Sonny's age, I'm goofing. She looks like she's 20, But when I was younger, I didn't listen a lot. I was very self-absorbed. So I'm talking now. I gotta talk. They tell me I gotta talk, right? If I got on here and I was silent, it'd be a little weird, right? So I gotta talk. But you listen to people, you take information in, and you're trying to always get to be a better person. And that's about what I want to cover today. And I think that just helps everybody, period. You know what I mean? Like, we got this whole PPP program there in DC. And I mean, look, I'm worried. We got 26 million businesses in the United States. Would we have 5 million of them fail? We might. Bakery across the street, you see they changed the name. They're out of business. And my point is, why did that happen? The implementation of that. If we're going to get money, we better get it to them in 2 weeks. Most businesses don't have 2 weeks of working capital. You can't make them wait 2 months. Come on, get with the program. So people aren't listening to the constituents, right? They're not, or they're listening and they're like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm like, no. We got a war in this country right now. And the biggest war is not Democrat, Republican. It's with the small businesses. Everybody loves small business. I love small business. Well, get them some money. And you better do it fast because they only have 2 weeks of working capital on hand. I know I was one. But my point is, if we're listening and we're taking feedback and integrating into our lives, we're going to be okay. One last thing. And I know this is hokey and old-fashioned, but I'm hokey, and you invited me. So, we got a glass, and it's half full and it's half empty. I will tell you that the American economy tends to be very resilient. We are good at commerce. We are good at free enterprise. We are good at capitalism. We are good at that. We are really good. We're not good at everything. Got a couple of wars wrong. You know what I mean? Look at me. Well, geez, why are we over there? But on the economy, we are good at the economy. So I think long run, we're going to be fine. I really do. Now, if you're a small business listening right now, I don't want that to be a platitude because I know you're suffering. So I don't want to be flip about that. But long run, we're going to be okay. So with that, Sonny, I'm going to turn it back to you. And, you can, questions, I love to get those, or we do whatever you want to do.
First of all, thank you very much for those empowering words. First of all, control what you can control, ignore what you can't. That is so important. There's so much going on currently in our world, and we can get off track and be distracted. So definitely, and those great books, Think and Grow Rich, How You Think controls your outcome, how to win friends and influence people. How exciting. So we do have an audience of students. Our students are average age is about 35 years old. So these are working adults. So don't worry. I think they learned some great lessons and it's all well. So they do have a question for you. What other entrepreneurs does he admire?
One more time, sorry. I didn't quit. Yeah, it was a lag in the internet, something. Yeah, good.
Certainly. What other entrepreneurs do you admire?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. When I was a kid, I did a lot of reading, a lot of reading. You know, now you can just go to YouTube, it makes it easier. But when I was a kid, I did a lot of reading on entrepreneurs. These are the people I wanted to be like: Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, Henry Kaiser, um, the fellow who founded, not founded IBM, but grew IBM. I can't remember his name now, but I like them. I really turned on to Steve Jobs later on after he died. I learned a little bit more about him. I didn't follow him because I was building my own company, but I admire his vision. Those are some names, I think. Now, remember, imperfect people, absolutely. It's amazing when once you die, everybody like prints the dirt on you, and who wouldn't have dirt on them? I mean, come on. So those are some names for me, but they really. I remember Charlie's over here to the right. You guys can't see him, but Scott Ogle asked me one time. He said, "How do you deal with this? Like, just because SageWorks. I don't know if you know this, but we were in business 20 years, but we accrued 99, literally 99% of the value of that company, Sonny, was accrued in the last 7 to 8 years. For the first 12 years, we were hitting foul balls. And during one of the tough times, Scott said to me, "How do you deal with this? Gosh, we can't pay the bills. We can't." And with all those years of reading the stories of entrepreneurs who struggled, it's really true. I spoke at a Henry Ford Foundation. It was very nice. They got a big old museum there in Detroit. And they asked me all these questions. And I'm like, wow, I'm really glad I'm here because Henry Ford had a business failure. His father wouldn't even give him money, wouldn't even lend him money. But I learned about their lives. And then how could I apply that or learn about that? So that's a good question. Thank you.
I do have one additional question, and then we're going to transition into another portion of our webinar. I'm sure you've had many entrepreneurial ideas over the years. How do you differentiate a good idea from a sound business venture?
Right.
And then there was one other portion of that, a job versus a business. Just curious what criteria rings with you.
Yeah, so that's good. I haven't been asked that one, but I do have what I want to say about that. I like a business where, and it sounds so simple, but I like a business where it's a needed product or service, like people need it. I don't want to be an inventor anymore. I tried that with SageWorks and ugh, it was unbelievably difficult. I will never do that again. So I like a business that, it's been kind of proven, big market, it's growing, where I can jump in and compete. A market where the tide's rising, an industry where the tide's rising and it's raising all the boats up. So I like that. I get like by the way, most people get 5 business, I get 5 a day. And so through my lens, it's needed. And most importantly to that, is it something that you love to do? I mean, I never want to be competing with a person who's doing something they love to do and I don't like to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you watched the Michael Jordan thing. That guy's crazy. Holy crow. I mean, he was unbelievable. Like obviously he liked the game. I don't want to compete with him. I got to be born in a different generation than that guy. He loved the game and he's out. They say Dean Smith used to say after practice he'd be out like shooting more shots so I want to do something I love to do so then it doesn't become work. You like doing it. You would do it without even getting paid. So that's a good question. Yeah.
This is promise. This is the last one. Then we are going to transition into our panel. We have some additional exciting guests that I would like to present. This is from your audience member, Deanna. And how would you describe the role of public libraries and/or librarians in entrepreneurship in North Carolina? And what kinds of collaborations exist with the Bryan Hamilton Foundation and libraries, or are there projects planning? And there's some additional questions on collaboration.
Are we allowed to joke around?
Yeah, why
No,
not?
I'm kidding, but we can joke. Deanna, I've never been to a library. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking, just joking. I spent 4 years of college really going deep in a library. I mean, Tom couldn't get me out of a library. I mean, I studied hard. On a serious note, let me answer that. I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you this: that we have free online courses in how to start businesses, very practical, taught by practitioners, and they're free. So, I mean, if we can get it in anywhere perched in North Carolina system, that would be great. We've got two of them. We've got Starter U, which is basically how to start a business. It's 8 hours, all the essential elements that you need. Very practical, very real. Here's exactly how you do it. And then we got this other thing that we released recently called Starter High. So, we could talk to Charlie about, I mean, anything that we can do to get our content out throughout the North Carolina system, we'd be happy to do.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now transition. And while I'm doing that, we can listen a little bit more music if I can get it pulled up and go from there. Any other questions or anything that you want to share with the audience before we move over?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, yeah.
All right, one moment. All right, so our second half of this hour here. Today we're going to introduce a panel. Once again, our panel will consist of Bryan Hamilton, but we would also like to introduce our very own Katherine Truitt, the Chancellor of Western Governors University, North Carolina. Katherine Truitt is a lifelong educator who has began her career in education in the classroom. After 13 years of teaching all over the US and in London, she became Governor Pat McCrory's education advisor. Prior to becoming Chancellor of Western Governors University, North Carolina, Katherine served under the President Margaret Spellings at the University of North Carolina System Office. She is committed to the core belief that all people have a right to maximize their potential. Then also joining us from the North Carolina Economic Development Association, who is also partnering with Western Governors University to bring forward this webinar, is Lawrence Bivens. Lawrence Bivens is a Managing Director for Public Affairs and Policy at North Carolina Economic Development Association, a post he's held since 2017. NCEDA serves more than 700 economic development professionals around the state, as well as the private allies and educational partners who share a stake in their success. The organization was founded in 1966 and is based in Raleigh. Prior to joining NCEDA, staff Lawrence was Deputy of Communications Director for the North Carolina Department of Commerce. He also is the author of North Carolina, the State of Minds, the state's official coffee table book. Welcome to our panel, and Lawrence will be moderating, and the panelists will be Katherine Truitt and Bryan Hamilton. You have the floor.
Well, thanks so much. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be participating in this, along with our partners at and Bryan. That was an inspiration. Talk. I'm fired up. I have questions for you that were prepared in advance, but now that I've heard you, ones that have come up too. I believe we probably have time for them all, and I have a few questions for Katherine. And what I will do is start with Bryan and talk about the interaction between entrepreneurship and communities. Every community, Bryan, every community wants a guy like you. Every community would love to have a guy who knows how to start businesses and succeed entrepreneurship. And you are quite the story. I think your story is what a lot of people aspire to when they say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Always the case. Most businesses, in fact, fail. The current landscape, as we undergo this pretty dramatic transition to an economic landscape that we're not sure what it's. Right. We know it's going to be different, though. We also know in recent months that scale does matter. We've seen businesses, Depot and Lowe's, really succeed. We've seen smaller local businesses either close down or sort of push. Is the current landscape something that you are excited about for entrepreneurs and small business, or is it going to be more difficult to achieve the sort of scale need in order to survive?
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate that. I'm trying to collate my thoughts on that. So, no, I'm not optimistic for entrepreneurs or small businesses in the next year. Absolutely not. I want to be careful because I don't want to be like a spoil sport, like a party pooper. But there's a lot of these businesses that are really suffering right now. And you mentioned something. I mean, woof, I got to keep my thoughts contained on this because I'm an advocate for small businesses and that. Why is Lowe's open? And I can't go over to like an Ace Hardware, whatever it is, or a small business where there's a supply store. I mean, I don't. That's frustrating to me, but it is what it is. And I'd say to you that over the short term, there's going to be aftershocks from all this that are going to be profound. That we're kind of going day by day now in phase 1 and phase 2. Well, which is another thing too, by the way. Someone didn't get the memo on that. Most businesses need to be at 80-90% capacity to even break even. So you say phase 1 is 25%, phase 2, and it sounds really nice, like phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3. We're very organized. Well, I'm like, yeah, but until you get to 80 or 90%, you don't even make money. It's going to be better for you to stay closed. Now, I know that, by the way, because I've run these businesses, a lot of them, not all of them, but these types of businesses. So you tell this person, okay, you can open at 50%. Well, I'm going to lose more money being open than closed at 50%. That's a fear. Now that is what it is, whatever. I mean, you touched them on some other things. I do want to get to it real fast because I don't want to, Lawrence, I see Katherine there. Charlie speaks so highly of you, and like, don't let me go first because I'll just talk through the whole thing. So I want to wrap it up real fast. I do want to say a few things. One is you're right about small business failure, but Lawrence, if you and I went out and started a landscaping business, like cut lawns, right, for a year, and we made money and we ate and we paid the bills and whatever, and after a year we decided we don't want to do that anymore, is that a failure? I don't know. That's not a failure to me. So one thing I do want to communicate is I think that it is hard to run a business, but the way people define failure, the government does anyway, is that it's so tightly refined. I don't think it's the right definition. When I was a kid, I did lots of things. One for maybe a season, another for a year. But when I stopped doing it, it's not a failure, I'd say. But I think your first point is really well taken, as you know. Lawrence, you know this. I mean, this is your area, right? In North Carolina, we have we got a lot of abundance. I mean, you go to Greensboro or Winston-Salem, Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, and there's a lot of abundance there, right? But there's areas in the state that are suffering economically, just like where I grew up. All the factories moved out, right? I don't know. I don't want to call Rocky Mount out, but Rocky Mount. This kind of city I grew up with, Rocky Mount, Roxborough, Lumberton. There's a lot of them. So, I guess we can talk offline too. But real quickly, I think we can get volunteer entrepreneurs to go out to these areas and help, because I think they do need the help. I think, let's be honest, Raleigh-Durham, we don't need any help here. I mean, and Katherine, I think you're in Charlotte, but we might need a little bit, but not that much. I mean, we got so many resources. So I think there needs to be more equal distribution of resources, educationally and otherwise, from what I've seen. But sorry, I want to let Katherine go.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that because it is a challenge for the economic development. Entrepreneurs are a double-edged sword for economic professionals. On the one hand, every community needs a diversified local economy with both big and small business and a wide range of service enterprises that are capable of supporting the big corporations that are there. And as you well know, there are a lot of moving parts. There is a lot of need. Every situation, an economic developer will end up pulling her hair out if she gets too involved with an individual entrepreneur, as opposed to paying attention to the bigger businesses, the bigger employers.
Right.
So back to this later on. We'll talk about resources and for us to collaborate. I'll turn to my friend Katherine Truitt for the next question. Is it fair to expect a higher institution of any kind, bricks and mortar or online, traditional or competency-based, is it fair to expect a higher ed provider to create an entrepreneur the caliber of Bryan Hamilton? Or is it a realistic goal that institutions like WGU can set for itself?
That's a fascinating question, Lawrence. So I think that, yes, it's fair. Just let's right off the bat say that. And I would go even further to say that that I do believe that there has to be something inside you that is driving you towards entrepreneurship. And that entrepreneurship, it might not be something that you do, when you're 10 or 18 or 24, it could be. But my husband's a great example of someone who became an entrepreneur at age probably 47. And so I think that what I would love to see are traditional universities as well as non-traditional universities encouraging entrepreneurship and encouraging something other than the status quo, because I think that when we innovate, which is one of the things I love about WGU, by the way, is that we are that's in our innovations in our DNA, and I don't know that that's necessarily true of the average brick and mortar institution. I think that it's that innovation can be a scary proposition for especially during a time like we're in now. But I would say that I'm a big believer in that there has to be something, you can't fake the things that Bryan said you need to have in order to be a good entrepreneur. To love your customer and love your business and to be a good listener. Those things can't be faked. And so there has to be something in you that wants to do this.
The benefit of EDA members who are out there listening, and we've been fortunate enough to call you and several others from WGU EDA members for a year or two now, and they've gotten familiar with the institution and its mission. But can you review for our members and we touched on it earlier in Sonny's introduction, but the offerings that WGU has for entrepreneurs. I'm assuming that they're operated under the business curriculum, but what if I want to learn more about entrepreneurship and want to do it the right way, how can WGU help me?
So actually, I would say that Sonny's a better person to answer that question than I am, because Sonny was a mentor in our College of Business, which is an important thing to bring up, because For those who do not know this about WGU, every student has a mentor. And I think that that is important because mentorship is, first of all, it's a big differentiator for us compared to any other university. But mentorship, as opposed to coaching, allows for someone who wants to be innovative but might be struggling to kind of step out on that ledge for the first time and take the plunge to be able to do that. And our mentors are people, if you're a nurse, your mentor has been a nurse. If you are a teacher, if you're in the teacher's college, your mentor has been a teacher. So Sonny, I'm going to let you answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, I was for the past 3 years had the opportunity to be inside the College of Business. And as a program mentor, my role was to nurture whatever person's vision and dreams are. And like, Bryan stated, it has to be something that is inside of you. And I've had numerous students from the College of Business who desire to have an entrepreneurial background, but I believe you have to have a foundation as well. So education provides that gap between having that passion and being able to execute a plan and being able to understand best how to be a leader, how to be a manager. And so I believe that inside of our programs, we offer, especially in the College of Business, we offer programs where you're able to work in leadership, and it's competency-based. So if you have experience in any type of work experience that adds value to your degree, our programs allow you to be able to use that experience to elevate and to move further within your in your goals or into your degree plan. And so to answer your question overall, I believe, frankly, that you have to have some sort of, you're going to either have to have a coach, a mentor, or some type of knowledge to go with your passion. Because I've been an entrepreneur myself, and I certainly know that passion can take you far, but the knowledge that you gain with an education allows you to be positioned better to gain opportunities, to be able to just to be knowledgeable and aware of what's going on with your finances, to be able to get you to know how to work with people, because you can have a lot of passion, but if you don't know how to work with people and you don't know how to connect and you don't know how, like you said, Bryan, listen to people, then you're certainly up against a lot. So being able to manage your portfolio of knowledge is very important. And I think that matched with your passion will allow you to be a great leader within your business and to be able to make certain that you know how to run it so no one else will be running it in the background and you are neglected or you are up against failure because you didn't know how to move forward in your knowledge on how to run a business.
It's passion and execution.
Excellent.
Teamwork. That's right. Thank you,
Yeah,
Katherine.
well, thank you both. And ask him if he would like to comment on that, on the question I put to Katherine. And Bryan has the benefit, like I do, of having had a traditional bricks and mortar residential higher ed experience. Is it fair to expect an institution of higher learning to skill sets that an entrepreneur needs? Or is it, at the end of the day, something that a person really needs to be born with? That passion that you obviously bring, that dedication, the love you have for customers. Can that sort of thing really be taught?
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. I will go back to Catherine's point, though. I think she's right. I think the education system owes it to sow the seeds, and plow the ground, and to make this an opportunity. I think that's true, which leads directly into what you're asking about. To me, like I said, my thing when I was a kid was football. I didn't care about anything, like cheerleaders or beer, or smoking pot. I didn't care. I didn't pay attention to any of that. I wanted to be a professional football player, 8 to 18. But and I'm going to answer your question, but I got to about 16 or 17. I started looking around. I'm like, these people are bigger and faster. That's not going to happen for me. So I was really good. I was like really good guy in my town and county. But you go up, and so what am I trying to say by that? I think to answer your question, Lawrence, I think that we can build competence to a certain level. One is you're all thumbs, you can't do anything, and 10 is you're an NFL football player. We can't get you to 10, but we can teach people to get to 5 or 6. We can make them competent. And I think that we also can expose people to this whole thing, you know. And finally, I do think, having been the beneficiary of you know, I went to college and graduate school and all this stuff. I really think that I'm pretty sure about this, at any university, not your university. And Charlie reminded me the average age of people is 35, so I apologize to, you know, but I think we don't, at any age, we owe it to people to teach them the basic things about life. See, for me, what opened my eyes in college were the religion and philosophy courses, the way you act, the way you are, how to think, how to treat people. That's going to direct, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, that's going to direct 95% of your success. And, you know, the truth is we don't really do that much in college. I mean, you know what I mean, Catherine? You look at your career, you've been very successful. Like, well, how did you get that way? Well, because I got a master's in education. I'm like, really? I don't know, Catherine. Charlie says she's very smart and a cool lady and glad to be here. But I don't know Catherine at all. But if I asked her, what made you successful? You know, it's the basic stuff, you know, how you treat people and how you are, how to act the right way and have manners and courtesy and all that. And you know, that's what drives every successful person. So I think we could do better on that in college. But I do think that we can set up an environment to introduce people to entrepreneurship. And then whether it's for them or not, you know, they make that call.
Speaking of this, you spoke of it earlier today, and I actually took the liberty of watching some of your YouTube videos prior. And you've talked about this. It's important to know who you are. It's also important, it's equally important to know who you aren't.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you about that. Is it possible that it takes a person, profile WGU student who might be in her mid-30s, to finally aware of what she is, who she is, and who she isn't, before she realizes it's time to embark upon an entrepreneurial endeavor? Do we really know ourselves that well at age 22 to make that choice?
That's a great question. I'm going to defer to you, Catherine, because your husband's experience is actually not abnormal, meaning that happens a lot. So, you know, I mean, I'd like it to be introduced to everybody, you know, early on. I mean, I just started doing it because that's what I did and I learned to do it. But I think, Catherine, your experience is probably very typical. I think that you know, you don't even know about it. You don't know yourself. And then, you know.
I think that I really like what you said, the way you phrased it, Lawrence, where you said, what do you know about yourself? You know, and how well do you have to know yourself to embark on something like this? And I think that whether we're talking about leaving sort of a traditional career path or trajectory and starting a business, or whether it's just advancing in your career, you have to walk that fine line between having confidence in yourself, but also knowing what in that moment your limitations are. Because as Sonny said, you do have to be able to execute on something, on whatever it is. And I can tell you, when I went from the classroom to the policy world, there's really, I have to say, not a lot of similarities in those two worlds. And I was drowning in that job for the first, certainly the first 6 months were some of the most difficult months of my life. just trying to learn everything. And, that was a time in my life when I was really motivated by the fear of failure. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being motivated by the fear of failure. I think that at some point you need to grow in your career such that you can be motivated by other things to be successful, and it doesn't have to be failure. But I think that everybody should go through the experience of being motivated by the fear of failure. And I think that forces you to, again, you have to be introspective enough to look inside and say, what am I good at? And be honest. And this is harder for women than men. Be honest about where your strengths are, and do not let your, the things that you're not good at overshadow the things that you are good at, if that makes sense.
Excellent. I want to pivot attention. I want to pivot back to WGU and the higher ed landscape. You and I have had many conversations about online learning and virtual campus. I first started reading about online learning about 25 years ago. It was really in the mid 90s when the internet was really taking off. People started talking about, well, we can classes on the internet. This is going to be great. And then online proper programs, curricula, online programs, and then ultimately online. I think it will be the case, I'm not sure, that an online degree viewed as better than no degree didn't quite have the same cachet as traditional bricks and mortar credential degree. And maybe that had something to do with opportunities that go on a traditional college campus and the relationships that are built, not so much the knowledge required. But we've seen in recent months and years that just an explosion of learning opportunities. So much so that is an issue now, and branding, quality. Now that we're moving to the other side of the post-pandemic, is online learning finally there? Is it on a par with the traditional classroom-based learning environment? Are we finally there?
So is it on a par? Let's start with that. I would say that not all online institutions are created equal, and that, like anything else, people need to do research before they commit to any institution. I would also say that what we're seeing with campuses, traditional campuses that have had to put together in the last semester, put together pretty quickly an online experience so that there's a continuity of learning, has been largely a failure. And I say that because you cannot, online learning, remote learning is not the same thing as recording yourself doing what you would be doing if you had students in the classroom with you. That's not what WGU does. That's not what online learning should look like. And so in order for campuses, even before COVID-19, when professors were forced to provide online content and instruction, college kids were not really enjoying online classes for the most part. And a lot of campuses, a lot of institutions would force kids. There would just, an online class would appear on their schedule. A lot of universities are saving money with adjunct professors and online courses. So I think that when people ask me, well, is an online degree, I mean, how do I know I'm going to get a job if I go to WGU? How do I know that people are going to perceive it to be equal to that of, going to UNC Wilmington or something like that? And the answer is to look at the data. And that should be part of anybody's research. I mean, our data speaks for itself in terms of folks getting jobs, getting promoted, being able to be successful in postgraduate work. So I feel very confident in saying to anyone who's looking just at the question of, am I going to have a good online experience? Am I going to learn? Am I going to finish equipped with the skills that I need? And what I would say is that you're even more likely to be equipped with those skills at WGU because we're mastery-based, because we're competency-based, because our course curriculum is built with industry experts. So employers who know about WGU actually create space for our graduates when they're hiring. But I do believe that higher education, we are going to see enrollment declines. We were already seeing enrollment declines in traditional residential college experiences. And the four-year residential college experience has become something that is not available to all people in the United States because of its price tag.
Excellent. Competency-based curricula. Are we doing okay on time, Sonny, or do I need?
Yeah, I would like you to ask maybe one more question of each, and then we'll move to the audience so that we can allow people a little bit more time to go and prepare for their next day, part of their day.
Excellent. Okay, well, I will do that, and my first will go Katherine, and then we'll wrap up with Bryan. So competency-based learning, Katherine, it's not something that a whole lot of people didn't have their minds wrapped around. I mean, what are we talking about? The other thing is pretty easy to get at this point. WU has done both and done both very well. Pioneered this whole space.
Yes.
Where does your institution go from? For you, what's next?
I've got 2 words for you: micro-credentials. So we are transitioning, not just in the US, but I think in the developed world, we are transitioning from a one and done approach to higher education to a continual learning loop, where the phrase lifelong student or lifelong learning does not describe your child who continues to be a perpetual student and not have a job, but refers to someone who is always upskilling and always preparing to be relevant in whatever changes come our way in the workforce. And so traditionally, WGU has only enrolled degree-seeking students, meaning you cannot just enroll and take a course. And you still can't do that. That's something, by the way, that leads to greater student debt, which is something that we're always trying to help our students avoid. But micro-credentials that are stackable, that stack into a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, or that just lead to a certification or a badge, are key in a world where technology is continuing to change exponentially faster. And so that is, I think, that is what I know is happening at WGU. We are definitely moving in that direction so that folks can constantly upskill and be relevant.
And my final question for Bryan has to do with entrepreneurship and more to do with technology. Your company was a pioneer. I'm not sure that was even a word, but technology. North Carolina is huge in this, Charlotte and the Triangle and elsewhere. After having experienced pioneering basically a whole new industry segment, what are you looking at potentially as some of the technological areas and fields that are emerging on the horizon that a few years from now we're going to look back and say, wow, that grew out of that grew up in 2020 and it's really become something big. Any clues on what the future holds for technology?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think most of us can kind of imagine what those are. I mean, most of these things, it's like, I remember the first time that and I'm dating myself a little bit here and I don't want to call you guys out, but I remember the first time that I went from DOS to Windows, There's this program called DOS. None of you remember it, but
Well,
anyway, there's an operation, and I remember the first time I used Windows after DOS, and it was obvious. I mean, it required no insight at all. I mean, it was like clear. DOS is, like Control L, this, and you're trying to print documents, and then Windows is like you just click on a print icon and it prints. And so it was really obvious that we weren't going back to DOS. I mean, it was clear. Just no insight. And I think today is similar. I mean, today's similar, right? Anything online learning and remote work. I think there's a bit of freelancing and people doing sort of these part-time, that people call gig jobs. That it's not just gig jobs, it's all that stuff. That is not going to be a micro trend. That's not born out of COVID. COVID itself, it may do something for certain industries, but there's a massive change of the way we work and the way we think. I mean, look at this right here, I mean, like we'll look back in 5 years, Lawrence, and we'll look at this user interface and we'll laugh, because it'll be so much more advanced and do so much more. And so I think those things are gonna they're gonna happen, and of course certain industries are ones you could see the end of that too. When I was in business school in 1988, people would get out of Duke's Business School and go to these companies and figure out how to sell more cigarettes. I mean, can you imagine? It's crazy, right? Like, and I remember thinking, wow, that doesn't seem like there's a real long-term trend there. So this stuff is pretty obvious. Like I said, my biggest fear for small businesses where they provide basic things that we need. And I'm really worried about them being disintermediated. But those are some ideas.
interesting stuff. So much. I will turn the webinar back over to Sonny.
All right, well, thank you all for being here today. We do have one question so far, Bryan. I know that we are needing to wrap up today, but we definitely have learned a lot from passion to foundation to education. And the question that we have here is, has WGU considered an MBA track focused on entrepreneurship, like in IT or healthcare, and as well as an MBA track in entrepreneurship and innovation? Does that exist, or will it come?
For the school? Yeah, sorry, go. I'm sorry.
Well, I would be curious to know if Bryan knows if which MBA programs that exist in already. I don't. The answer to Adam's question is I honestly don't know if that's something that we're thinking about. We just recently we're launching a new core in the College of Business, and I'm not sure if entrepreneurship is part of that or not, but I will certainly find out.
And there are definitely some colleges who are focusing on it more. Like Babson's always been that way, and some of the top business schools are doing that. But I mean, I will say on a positive note for Adam that there's a lot more education around entrepreneurship now than there used to be. I mean, when I got out of school, it was like the way you learned about entrepreneurism was like you read a book about Steve Jobs. I mean, it was anecdotal. Or you would take a course on how to do a business plan. So the level of education around entrepreneurship has definitely gotten better.
Is there any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, there's one thing, Sonny. There's one comment up here. I can't hardly read this stuff, but there's one comment somebody made. I don't know who it was, and I think it's important to note that it is true that the average age at which you're successful in being an entrepreneur is like 45 to 50. You have to remember, might want to remind me of that for the kids today. Like seriously, like, because they always think like I'm going to start a company when I'm 18 and drop out of Harvard and become like Mr. Facebook or Mrs. Facebook or whatever. And that's not true. Most entrepreneurs, it's like a learned skill. It's like a craft. It's something you learn to do. So that's a good point. Someone mentioned that the average age of a successful entrepreneur is about 45 to 50. And in my experience, that's true because it takes time to develop your craft.
It's definitely true. And this is a good time, Bryan, for people who are wanting to be entrepreneurs to take the time to educate themselves, learn about programs, as well as find coaches or mentors like we have here at WGU to move forward in their decision making. Do you have any closing remarks and also any announcements about your organization, either Katherine, Bryan, or Lawrence?
I'll go. It's fine. I'll defer to Katherine and Lawrence. I'd say final remark. I just want to make sure I get a little worried because there's a lot of words, right? And from everybody, all of us. And I just want to go back to I think I know it sounds like a platitude, but we tend to be very resilient as a people. So if you're a small business owner or maybe you're a student, you're trying to get a job or whatever it is, we'll get through this. And we really will do that. That's true. I mean, our record's about 247 and 3. It's a pretty good record, like we got about 250 years and about 247 of those we've done pretty well. So the odds are in our favor.
Bryan, one more question. Can you you have provided good advice on what entrepreneurs should do. What should they not do?
Well, and I'm just goofing around a little bit, but just do the opposite of what you should do. Like, don't start a business yeah, really, like, don't start a business where you don't like what you're doing because you're going to find some crazy person like me who likes to cut lawns. Like, don't compete with me on that. You know what I mean? Don't compete with Michael Jordan in basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like, so find something that you like to do. I'd also say another mistake people make is starting businesses where there's not a demonstrated need for the product or service. I'll never do that again. It took me 12 years to teach the market. What a lot of people don't realize, this comes right out of the Innovator's Dilemma, that book, that it takes 20 years for an industry to develop. Lawrence, you talked about that. I didn't know that. I mean, who would think that back in 97, 98, when the internet's coming around, that people were starting to piddle around, online education or remote learning. I didn't even know that until today, until you said it. So just think about how long it takes for that industry to develop. So I want to be in a market where there's demonstrated need today.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, I just thank you both. Thank the Bryan Hamilton Foundation and WGU for inviting us to participate in this. We consider entrepreneurship a very vital aspect of the process, and we also consider our educational partners critical to what we do, critical to the task of creating jobs. And we anticipate closer relationships in the coming years. I would think conversations like this need to be going on more often. We need to talk to each other more and more often. I would invite your students to check out our website, nceda.org. Explore the field of economic development and consider the possibilities of what the economic development in your community might be able to do to help you support businesses' success. We would encourage that. I will point out that we have 2 events coming up. On June 11th, as our members know, we're having our virtual membership meeting. That's on June 11th, and we have scheduled, at least for late August, our conference at Wrightsville Beach is going to take place August 25th through 27th. And you can find out more about these events and more about our organization on our website, nceda.org. And thank you again.
Any closing remarks?
Well, I just want to say thanks to everyone for taking time out of their busy schedule. There are lots of opportunities like this that people are getting, each week, webinars to join. And I think that it is because folks want to be helpful, and I think that's a great thing. I want to just echo what was said towards the beginning of the webinar. I think I heard Bryan use the word access. And it may have been in the explanation of the Bryan Hamilton Foundation. They're in the business of helping entrepreneurs have access to what they need. And that's what we're doing as well. We're providing access at WGU North Carolina to high quality higher education opportunities to people who would not have it otherwise. And so I think that it's been a pleasure to be with all of you today. And I know I sleep better at night knowing that there are folks like y'all who are working to make sure that opportunities exist for everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's for you. Thank you, everyone. I hope that you have a wonderful and great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.